Welcome to the Writer Reads Flash Fiction from another 365 days of flash fiction. This is month 3, day 14, Lucy and the Rabbit. Lucy wanted the rabbit more than anything else in the world. She wanted to sit with it during the day and sleep with it at night. She wanted to have someone to share her life with. And if the rabbit was the only living thing around, it would do. She wanted something to hug. Lucy followed it during the day, stopping only to search for food and shelter and another box of shotgun shells, and the rabbit grew used to her. She sat close by when it was feeding, hoping it would come to her, but it never did. Sometimes they stopped too far from her shelter for her to return in time, and she experienced the free fall of panic as she tried to find a safe place for the night, somewhere the undead could not reach. It took her a week to realize the rabbit was leading her somewhere, and even then she followed it. The rabbit moved west, picking its way further into the city ruins where the undead grew bolder and more frequent. After a particularly close encounter, Lucy scowled at it. "Are you trying to get me killed?" The rabbit twitched its ears and bolted, and Lucy ran too. At least this time the damned creature seemed just as afraid as she did. Claws scrabbled behind her, and the rabbit zigged and zagged between the discarded pipes and brick piles of an abandoned construction site. Lucy raced after it, glad to see it was sticking to the light, and all too aware the sun was setting. The scrabble turned into the bounding pace of wild dogs, and the pack began to bark. "Well, no wonder you're running," Lucy told the rabbit. "The zombies might not want to eat you, but those things surely will. And they'd surely eat her too if they could catch her." The rabbit took an abrupt turn in through a doorway, and Lucy followed, unslinging the shotgun and hoping she wouldn't have to use it. Buildings were bad for monsters. She didn't expect the foot that lashed out from the dark and caught her across the ankles, or the hands that followed, one to pick her up by the arm and the other to take her gun. "Gotcha" was also not what she'd anticipated, but it sure as shit beat a zombie's unintelligible roar. She followed the drag on her bicep, figuring they could have killed her at the door, and trying not to think that maybe it was faster to let her run away from the dogs than carry her corpse and would leave less of a trail. In here, and she was jerked abruptly sideways, tripping over the stairs in the small space beyond as her helper slammed the door. He let go of her long enough to drop a hunk of wood across the doorway, and she wondered why he hadn't done that to the outer door as she was hauled up the stairs. "You get bit?" he demanded when they hit the top. "By what?" Lucy asked. He shook her. "Well, did you?" "No. Gonna have to check." Lucy yanked her arm out of his hand. "Like hell." The shotgun snapped up and the safety came off in one fluid movement as he backed up 2 steps and out of reach. "Now." Looking down the barrel was nowhere near as good as looking over it. Lucy felt her stomach clench and turned away. "Fine." She stripped fast, trying not to think of what she was doing. "Arms to the side, head up, and turn." Lucy did as she was told, glaring at him as she came to a stop. "And?" "Well, you're not bit. But hot damn, girl, do you always strip down naked for any guy that comes along?" Face burning, Lucy picked up her clothes and pulled them back on. "Only for assholes pointing guns at me," she replied, and refrained from saying payback was going to be a bitch. He lowered the gun. "Fair point. You're clean?" "Well, apart from the fact she hadn't bathed in months and must stink to high heaven, sure." Lucy held out her hand. "You going to give me back my gun?" He laughed. "Not a hope in hell, girl, but I'll share my supper." Below them, in a gathering dark, Lucy heard the first hunting call ring out. "Looks like they got your scent," the man said, and she stared at him. "God damn bunny." He cocked his head. "Why'd you follow him?" And Lucy blushed. "Never you mind." But he persisted. "Nah, girl, you got me curious. Why the hell follow a rabbit all the way through undead infested territory? That's just crazy." Lucy's face got hotter, and she glared at him. "None of your business." He gave her a lopsided grin. "Sure it is. I'm going to have a crazy girl staying in my home. I gots to know some of what makes her tick." Lucy turned away. "Come on, girl." He gestured around them. "Who am I going to tell? It's not like there are a whole bunch of folks just waiting for the gossip truck." The man had a point. Lucy sighed. I got lonely. Before he could answer that, more hunting calls joined the first, and they both jumped. He turned away. Name's Jack. Home's this way. They climbed another 2 flights of stairs, Jack dropping locking bars in place over each stairwell. Just in case the others don't hold, he explained when he caught her staring at him on the third. Gives me time to escape. He paused. You too now, if you stay. He lived at the top of the next flight, and he gestured at the room beyond. It's pretty cozy, he told her, but lonely too. Dinners. He let the words trail off as dogs snarled and growled and zombies screamed. Lucy watched him cock his head. Dogs don't like the undead, he said when he caught her looking. Me neither, Lucy muttered, then added, I hope the rabbit's okay. The man gave her a quizzical look. He'll be just fine. Lucy glanced toward the window, relaxing when she saw the bars across it. She hadn't seen any undead that could climb, but she didn't want to discover a new variety the hard way. When she turned back, she was alone. Jack? She looked around but couldn't see him. Jack? Now that she thought about it, she didn't like her chances of lifting any of the locking bars he dropped in place. Jack! Her voice echoed back at her from the walls, and her heart plummeted. Don't do this to me. Do what, girl? He asked, stepping out from a door set in the back wall. Lucy stared at him, her heart speeding up. She hadn't been so happy to see anyone in her life. Well, except maybe the rabbit. And that was different. The rabbit hadn't been much of a conversationalist. Jack had promise. Do what? He repeated, when she didn't answer. He covered the distance between them and put a hand on each of her shoulders. Do what, girl? He asked, shaking her slightly. Don't leave me alone, she whispered. Don't leave me alone, she whispered, flinching at his touch even as she relished it. Tentatively, she laid her palms against his chest. Don't leave me.